when I have a guy that's been beating their body up constantly every day, we like to transition or change it up a little bit and do the cognitive work because one, they're still training when it comes down to a progressive standpoint. They're still getting some adaptation from it, but they're not beating their body up. So with that, I want to keep going with the story because when I reached back out to you, Dustin Poirier was looking to do something in the cognitive world. He wanted to, I think he looked at Lomachenko's videos or something along the lines of that. Timing. And I actually told Dustin, I said, you know what? I got a buddy of mine that does this. I'll bring him in. And it just so happened it was the same night, I believe, as the Countdown show came. Yeah. And we did the first episode of the Countdown show. And you kind of showcased what we did. What did we do? What was like the primary benefit of what we did that day? Do you remember?
So we did a lot of something I call stress exposure, which is a concept that a guy, John Driscoll, he's a researcher at UCF, is basically making someone in a state that is less equipped. Like say, for example, if I give you 10 seconds to do something that would take usually 20 to 30 seconds, that means you got to react faster, and that's going to overwhelm you. So we did stuff like that. We give them like 20 seconds to do the grid thing, and you would like throw a ball at them, and the light was going off. So
now hold on, what was the grid? It was different numbers.
Yeah,
right?
You have 50 numbers scrambled up out of order, and you have to find them numerically 1, 2, 3, 4. So your vision is searching, so that's important for a fighter. You have to be able to track because their opponent's steadily focusing and moving. So that's very key. But then also when they're out of order, it's frustrating you because now you're like, wait, where's 3? Where's 3? And you seen it, they'll be like, ain't no 3 on here. And like, I'm looking right at it. And I'll do that on purpose to make them mad because they'll be like, what you mean you looking right? And now they're getting distracted because guess what? If it isn't relevant to that task, then you don't need to be thinking about it. But I purposely say that, and they'll say, you be distracting me. I'm like, that's my point. Yeah. You're gonna be so it's not 10,000 people gonna be yelling at you in an arena. Yeah. You suck. Like you ain't gonna sit there. Stop, please. I'm trying to punch this guy. Like so, I want, and that's the beauty of it. I can simulate that to that extent. Obviously, it's not 10,000 people, but it's getting in their head nonetheless. And that's what you want to. Just like you get someone to adapt to a heavy squat or a sprint or a jump, it's the same compensation of if I can get them not firing back on every response, then in a game or a meet or a fight, they're not going to do it either because you practice what you do. Or you do what you practice.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the good thing is like, well, that's when you talk about specificity. It's like you're really simulating, what they're going to go through mentally.
From a stress standpoint, yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And that's what people, they don't see that as much because they get caught up in the lights or the numbers. And granted, I get it. I'm not oblivious that it looks like a kiddie game, but almost, I would say 99.9% who ever done any of our drills, they'll say, dang, that looks harder than it really was, or that's harder than it looks. Because they assume, oh, I can do that. And I almost have 100% fail rate on the first tries when they do my stuff because they think, it's simple in like how it's shown, but when you're actually there, you're getting shown 3 to 4 things at once. Most people can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Yeah. You telling them to be athletic and think and react and pay attention to numbers. Most people is like, dang, I don't even like math or whatever. I'm got you doing 3 + 2, and people saying 6. Yeah. It's funny how that goes.
I messed up plenty of times with that one. If you check out our recent video, what we were talking about.
Oh, the count?
The count.
The plank count?
Yeah, that was crazy. I was like, man, I forgot how to count by 3s.
But I guarantee any one of your followers who watched that and did it messed up too. I messed up because your body does not, or your brain and body doesn't like doing multiple things. Yeah. It competes. One side of the brain saying, or one part of the brain saying, make them balanced or coordinated in the plank.
It's frontal plane.
Yeah. So no, it's cerebellum.
Cerebellum and frontal is.
Frontal is the prefrontal is when you're doing problem solving, planning. So they're both trying to say, hey, we need to do this. No, we need to do this. Guess what? None of them do it. That's why you messed up. Yeah. Until you get better, then like. I know I was just probably jumping the gun, but the tactical population I work with, guys who literally go into countries and kill people, like they can't have that happen. So that's why it's important, whether you're a military or a fighter, whoever, to be able to calm both sides down and make them run parallel. Because the myth of multitasking, while you can't physically multitask, you can switch back and forth to a pace that you won't notice that you're doing both. And people can do this. That's why the crazy videos you might see me with the Mosey hand riding. Yeah. That's because I practice what I preach. Like I can do multiple things at once.
Man. We do see that. You do. And I think that's one of the things that people don't like do most of is like they like to bark out orders and give out instructions, but they've really never done it. Do your own program. See how it affects you. And then you can go ahead and give it to other people. And that's what you do a lot of. I see it all the time.
They called me out on it. They'll be like some of the fighters or one of my NFL guys, he called me out hard. He was like, man, you do this shit. And then I'm like, okay. And I killed him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now what? Well, you made it though. I'm like, so I can't. You probably do it the same. Like, well, you program it, but you squatted over 600 pounds. You've earned your keep. That's not an accident that you did it.
Athletes are always gonna talk, even if they they don't win. They're competitive, so that makes a lot of sense. So like, all right, so let's say for instance we get an athlete in, right? And I just want to go over the assessment protocol, right? We get an athlete in. What are we looking for from a cognitive standpoint on the assessments?
So vision, I want to see how quickly they can see. Peripheral, I emphasize probably more, only because with peripheral, you're tracking things from outside of your central view, because we see right in front of us obvious. Like if I'm looking at you, that's easy, but all of a sudden a fist comes, I need to be able to track that. So when we do some of the drills that for peripheral, it's important because now I can see how quickly he can attend to something that isn't in his direct focus. Because I'm more worried about that. I'm not worried about what he can straight up see. Rarely do you see someone get knocked out from something right in front of them. It's something
definitely.
caught off guard. Like I'm looking at a picture of Edson Barboza and his famous kick against Terry Edom, I think his name was, and I think that was like kick of the year or something. And he didn't.
Century.
Probably he went rigor mortis, like, not to make fun of him because obviously it's Edson Barboza, so it ain't like a slouch from the street, But the fact is, I broke down that video on my Instagram one day, and I did the exact timing. It was like 0.36 seconds between when Edson launched the spinning wheel kick and when he got hit. And like I said earlier, if he can perceive that peripherally out his vision just a quarter of a second faster, he's not getting hit.
For sure.
And while, like I said, the lights don't look that like relevant because it isn't in that form, I was asked any fighter or any athlete, if you could see something coming half a second faster, would you not want to? I would assume everyone would say yes. So peripheral vision is one of the main tests we do, and that's the 3 light drill that they might see when they're doing the left, right, looking straight ahead, and the lights are coming on 3 different lights. So after vision, we like to do more of something called working memory. So not to get too deep into the science of it. Working memory is kind of like, I say, your bench press of your brain, because you know how people be like, hey bro, what do you bench? Even though there's better lifts, I feel like a squat or deadlift to perceive real strength, but obviously bench is what most people do. And I say it's to bench your brain because if you have a good working memory, everything else goes with it. So working memory is to be able to hold information over about 30 seconds to a minute and be able to manipulate it. So the simplest way to say that is, if I give you a math problem, 10 plus 12, you would see that number probably in your head. You'd be probably talking in your brain, 10 plus 12, carry this, you know what I mean? You're carrying the 2, whatever. So that's you figuring out. So the same way in sport is you predicting, okay, he just slipped the jab, all right, but last time I threw this, he made this move. So you're factoring what to do. So that takes cognitive resources. So if I'm sitting there thinking of what he's going to do, that's slowing down what I can perceive. So I'm like, okay, what's he going to do? The next thing you know, he punches you. Oh, shoot. Now, someone who has high working memory, they'll be able to factor all that prediction and planning. Okay, I did a leg kick. He backed up. And they'll still be able to perceive to what's happening outside of them. Because someone with low working memory, they're going to be so caught up in what they're trying to formulate in their head, they're not going to see what's happening outside of them, and that could end very badly.
Yeah, they're almost playing like checkers and not chess.
Exactly. Because checker, you just one move here. Chess, you got to see, okay, L goes there with the queen or the rook, and this one does this shape, and you got to remember all the different patterns.
You got to be thinking 3 steps ahead all the time, and that's the fight game in general.